They should get married. I want them to stay together. This writer and this director have a beautiful dance going on between them. I forgive you, okay? I absolve it of all its sins. Go be creative, multiply, and replenish the industry. And don't kill anybody. Don't kill anybody, okay? Hi, my name is Pearl, and on this channel we review African movies, mostly Nollywood movies. Today we're reviewing Kill Boro, a suspense drama currently streaming on Prime Video. Kill Boro is written by Priye, Diri, and directed by Courage Obayuwana. I hope I said that name right. For its synopsis, it says, a desperate son and debt-ridden father fight for their lives. Set in Azwama, a rustic town by the river in an oil-rich state, Kill Boro tells the harrowing story of Elijah, a young boy burdened by his father Boro's relentless brutality against him and his mother. Driven by desperation, Elijah seeks an unthinkable solution from a notorious gang leader. Now, my comment on this synopsis is that I'm curious about what I would call the erasure of the mother. In these lines especially, a desperate son and debt-ridden father fights for their lives. I put it to you that all three of them were fighting for their lives. She was definitely fighting for her life, and she's not just there to stand between the two men, but is in fact a complete character in her own right and a vulnerable victim as well in her own right. But it's a small thing, it doesn't matter. Guys, thank you, welcome, you're here. I appreciate you. Please don't forget to like this video. Do it right now. Done? Thank you. If you're not subscribed to this channel, please subscribe. And of course, when you're done, don't forget to leave a comment and to share this video. All right, let's get into it. Kill Boro is the fourth release from the stables of First Features Initiative. Steve Gukas and his partner, I'm sorry, I don't remember his name right now, they're hitting it out of the park with First Features. So this project, this initiative as a whole, it reminds me very much of similar initiatives, particularly ones that I've been a part of. The first is Afri-Nolly Cinema for Change. That's actually where my screenwriting career took off. So that was many years ago. I think, was it 2013 or 14 that was? And then more recently, Lagos Film Lab. And in that one, I was a mentor and facilitator for the screenwriting workshop. I'm just going to say that of the four so far released projects from First Features, this is my favorite. The other one, which unfortunately I didn't get to review, but I really liked, was It Blooms in June. The other two though, I have very mixed feelings about them. Cake, I'm ambivalent about. Mostly I reviewed it on this channel. And then Love and Live, I actually disliked that particular movie so much that I didn't even want to touch it in a review. So I'm looking forward to whatever else they give us next. If you've not seen this film, you can have my recommendation now. Go watch it. I recommend it. Usually I leave that to the end, but I'm going to just say from here on out, it's spoilers, you know, so you can pause here. You have my leave to go watch this movie. Then come back and let's talk about it. Now, let's go straight to performances. Dima Okojie, number one. Oh my god. First of all, just in general, she's beautiful, she's graceful, she's enigmatic. And then once this movie started playing and I saw her performance, I had to pause and I was like, Ini, welcome back. Because, you know, for some time, I feel like she's been missing. You know, the Ini that we know from like the beginning of her career, I felt like that just wasn't in evidence in her last few projects. And then with this one, well, all I can say is what was missing was the right project. A role that would challenge her and take her out of her comfort zone. So I'm really happy to see her back in her element. In her role here as Boma, she's intense, she's precise, she's expressive, she controls every scene that she's in. Ini controls the screen and the scene. She's an incredibly talented actress, Dima is. So at this point, I think I'm ready to see her in an action film. All right, Philip Asaya. I love Philip. I think you guys already know this. I talked about him, I think he was in Cake. I talked about him there. And here he plays the central character of Boro. He's actually the title character, I guess you could say. So I don't know if this name was a play on, you know, Boro. Because I mean, Boro, I could just see it. Did anybody make that joke in the movie? If they didn't, that was a huge missed opportunity. Generally, this actor, he's dynamic, he's energetic. I like to see him on my screen, and then his performance here in particular is evocative. He makes stillness and then eruptions into movement. He makes that into just an art form in itself. So just he's a really, really good actor. So I was really happy to see him here in this role. And then between them, Boma and Boro, the chemistry between them is raw. Even in the midst of the tumult of their lives, the chemistry between them is electric. I love that pair. Gregory Ojefoa, here he's bossman slash Atemi, you know, that's the character he plays. I'm happy to see him not playing yet again a comical role or any kind of buffoonery or whatever, because I was really afraid that this hugely talented actor was about to be relegated or whatever into playing sort of those kinds of characters. So I just really like his character here because he's a hugely talented actor as well. Here, I love the quietude, the maturity, and the subtleness of the performance. And his acting specifically is well suited to the complacency of this character of Atemi slash bossman that he plays. Then we have Kosisochukwu Ogburoche. He plays the character of Elijah. He's a child actor, but he's very, very integral and central to this story. He's this kid, he's talented, he's intense. Still, he's a child. He did really, really good. I'm looking forward to see him grow, to see what more else he brings to our screens. Also, the other child here is beloved, I don't know, Asaya. She's beautiful. She's a natural. She's sweet. Every time she was on screen, I smiled. She just has this energy. Like, it didn't feel, again, like I said, she was very natural in this role. I do have a comment though on the two child actors. It's about their performance, but as it was influenced by the writing. Now, let me just say this, that their scenes are an important plot line that tie into the final act. So their story is not superfluous. Also, their performances are really smile-inducing. That said, the material and the writing is too mature for them. The language, the expressions, the dialogue was just much too adult and much too scripted. And so I feel like I could have enjoyed their performances more if the writing for them had been more childlike and just more attuned to their age. It just felt to me like it was dialogue written for adults. I agree that sometimes in an environment like this, children grow up really fast. That's true. However, they grow up internally in as far as maturity, as far as overexposure, but that does not change the way that they speak. They will still speak like children. All right, I do want to see him in different kinds of roles though. I feel like he gets cast in stuff like this quite a lot, and I think that let's go to Brutus, Richard. I love Brutus. First of all, he's my brother from another mother. I've known Brutus for over 20, maybe 20 years about, so he's a very long time brother and friend. That does have a lot more to offer. In this role, he's very charismatic. I love the playful countenance and yet understated threat of his presence on screen. Okay, then we have Blessing Ozero. I hope I said her name right. In her character of lead here, first of all, the actress is Lydia, I suppose so. The actress is really beautiful. I don't know if I've seen her before, I'm not sure, but she looked very new to me. So she plays her role well. Her character is really important in that it creates an important balance in that really testosterone-laden, male-dominated crime scene of this movie. Hilda Dokubo as well. It was really good to see her here. Her presence in this world, it just has this softening, I guess, quality to basically the hardness of this environment. We have Yibo Koko. He plays Iworime, who insists he's Jaguar, you know. His acting was also really effortless. There's a host of others. So all I'm going to say is that all in all, this is a solid cast with really, really incredible and credible performances. Let's get straight to my favorite part of all, what works, because I love movies to work, guys. I really like it when movies work. All right, production design as well as art direction are brilliant in this movie. There's incredible attention to detail. We're talking about the mood, the lighting, the locations, the sets, the costume. It's also intentional and yet shot in a way that just looks so very effortless. All of these elements work really well together with incredible cinematography and camera work. So we have just this really great mix of close and wide shots, you know, that are all really well done. It just adds to the beauty of the cinematography. Speaking of beauty, the world building here is remarkable. Gritty, raw, brutal, but then every once in a while, we just have this most picturesque sunset, right? I just think the cinematography was really beautiful. Boro is shot on location in PH, that's Port Harcourt. You know, the Niger Delta has has a very particular aesthetic and a very particular beauty. But in this movie, the way the environment is used very effectively, it has to be one of the top reasons why this movie is just so starkly beautiful to me. Weather as well, this is not something I've really seen in a Nollywood movie, I don't think. And let me tell you, I love this writer. Weather is used, well, the writer and the director, and I'm going to say something about their chemistry. They should get married. I want them to stay together. This writer and this director have a beautiful dance going on between them. The weather here is used effectively as a plot device. In much of this movie, we had a storm raging outside, just basically mirroring the hostility and, you know, the intensity and the chaos and the emotions of both the physical interior space but also the internal interior space of the characters. Gorgeous writing there. The soundtrack in this movie is gorgeous as well, not so much the score throughout. Towards the end, I think the score got better, but in the earlier, you see those epic transitions, people should dead it, okay? I don't know anybody that loves epic transitions more than Nia Akimolayan, but we'll get to him because I'm reviewing Criminal next, okay? That's the next movie I'm reviewing. Let's continue. The language of this film is also its own aesthetic. Look, we have Nigerian pidgin, right? The general Nigerian pidgin that we all speak. Then we have Wafi pidgin, and then we have Pitakwa pidgin, which is the pidgin of this movie. The slangs, the idioms, the expressions, it just left me gasping. There's a scene where somebody refers to Boma as small pin charger. I can't remember the last time I heard that, but let me tell you, I died. Now, speaking of language, there's a PSA, thanks to Mr. C of Iroko Critic. He says to tell y'all to make sure that the language is set, like on your TV in Prime Video, is set to Nigerian English, or you will have a very weird and a very baffling viewing experience. Okay, my job is done. The collaboration between all parts of production, especially, I've already said, the writer and the director, look, they're all singing from the same sheet of music. Okay, it's just an incredible synergy of all the parts of this production, and that's something that you would think you should take for granted. All right, let's talk all things script and story. Poverty is a theme that runs throughout this movie. It's at the backdrop, it's in the foreground, it's everywhere. It's basically the story. However, it's important to note that although poverty is so integral to this plot, it does not feel fetishized. It's handled very carefully, very respectfully, in a way that also doesn't feel tokenized or whatever. It's instead a dispassionate depiction of what character and its offspring look like, of which violence is one. And then also how the cycle of violence functions in society. The society beats you down, you take it out on the weakest members of society, the most fragile, the ones who trust and depend on you. They in turn become hardened, as we see in the case of Elijah, and then they, of course, from being hardened, they birth the next generation of violent people, and that's how it continues to perpetuate. So this movie does a really good job of showing how that works. I appreciate the nuanced conversation around domestic violence. This script carefully straddles the line between acknowledging the abuse by the male protagonist while at the same time also acknowledging his humanity. This movie is written in such a way that, I mean, there's an empathy to the writing of his character, but that does not let him off the hook. This is difficult to pull off, you know, but it's done so well in this movie and in a way that makes me feel, I feel safe with this writer. And again, that's something that is rare. This plot is woven very intricately. All the payoffs are set up and all the setups do pay off. In that way, nothing feels wasted. So for instance, the watch, you know, it keeps coming up time and again throughout the plot, and then towards the end it plays, you know, into the climax. And so does the friendship / puppy love between our two baby leads. How it plays out, that it was because of that relationship that everything that happened towards the end and the climax happened. Speaking of that watch, by the way, it reminded me of a story from my own childhood. Before I was a teenager, I might have been 10 or 11, and then my older sister was a year and a half older. So when boarding school, and my auntie who lived in the UK, she used to bring us a lot of really cool things, and so she brought us these wristwatches, right? And we wore them and were careless in the way of children because we didn't know what they were. And I remember I specifically left mine on the tank in the boarding house. I was washing at the tank and I just left mine on top of the water tank and it got stolen. So we're like, it's just a wristwatch, whatever. It even looked like a toy wristwatch. Anyway, fast forward several years later, I think we're in university, we're decluttering, you know, and we went into this suitcase that we just don't go to. Then guess what? We found the packs of these wristwatches and they were swatches. I'll never forget the feeling when when I realized what we had as children. You know, why would you give swatches to children? So anyway, this watch story reminded me of that. Anyway, let's just talk about the characters in general. The characters are very well developed, and like I've already said, they are written very empathetically. The plot is well constructed. For the most part, not completely, for the most part, this story has a lot of heart. It touches on several important subjects and themes, and it has a strong messaging around the effects of violence. I think I've already said this much. Now, there's such a good cadence and instinct for emotional storytelling in this movie. It's got all these ebbs and flows. When I say an instinct for, like, sometimes it's getting too heavy, it's getting too difficult, the plot is getting just intense, and then it seems to know when to break the tide and present us with something happy that gives. Look, domestic violence is such a crazy cycle that there's no one size fits all. And sometimes there's the person who is being abused, there's the victim for whom the only thing you can say to them is you have the resources, you have everything that you need to walk out of this situation, and that's valid. But there's also a validity to a certain kind of victim that for whatever reason cannot leave, and for them, every day that they survive, every day that the husband buys suya and brings to the house, and they smile and they sit around the table and laugh, and he pays the light bill and the light comes on and he doesn't hit you, it's a celebration. You know what I mean? This movie straddled that line so carefully. That's why I said this was very well done. But also, as far as emotional storytelling, you get so heavy, you know, at some point, and then there's a small ray of light and you're like, we'll take it. The final thing I'm going to say in the what works section, as far as just everything but also the story and the script, is the suspense and tension are well managed throughout. All right, guys, have you liked this video so far? Why? Are you a demon? Are you a witch? Do you not like me? Do you not like me? Do you not? Okay, please subscribe to my channel. Thank you so much. You guys know I appreciate you. Now let's get to what does not work. There's not much I don't like about this movie, okay? And I know it shocked you, Abby. It shocked me too. I was watching this movie, and at some point, you know, I had to stop and really just take it all in, how good this movie was making me feel, which is crazy to say because it's not a feel-good movie, but the filmmaking, the writing, all of it. But it isn't a perfect movie still, so let's go. I've talked about the plot was really, you know, well done and everything. While the plot works in general, a lot of scenes go on and on. Oh my god. And so that ended up interrupting the pace of the movie. The movie was moving along at a good pace as far as the plot events, but as far as individual scenes, there were scenes that just wouldn't end. If I wasn't reviewing, I would have forwarded some of the scenes, but you know, as a reviewer, you can't take the chance, because in fact, sometimes when I'm watching a movie, I might drift off for 2 seconds and I'm like, oh god, what did I miss? Did they say something critical? Did they say something that would explain everything? And then when I now come here and tell you guys, the movie did not, and then somebody will be in the comments like, smartass, you missed it. Did you even watch this movie at all? And I'll be like, oh, my bad, you know? So you don't want that to happen. You can't forward, but these scenes were difficult to stick with because many of them, long past when the scene was over, it just did not know how to in media res. That also, by the way, includes that narrated backstory by lead, that's Blessing's character. While her performance in that home monologue and all of that is really good, the scene itself is a huge time stealer. For one thing, it's got really nothing to do with the plot. This world is already well established. We don't need an individual story to underscore that. But also, she's not even that important of a character. So I did not need that much time dedicated to hearing this backstory of hers. In the beginning especially, there are some action scenes where no just make sense, you know. For instance, okay, first of all, some of them weren't like properly choreographed, you know, some were even a bit funny, and also some were a bit chaotic. But that said, yeah, you're wondering all this how many action scenes were there? I'm sorry. Sometimes all of these things happened within the same sequence. But that said, especially there's this scene early in the movie where those men are departing on boats, and then Lydia comes and she's shooting them. These men have machine guns. She's holding a handgun and she's shooting. I was like, is it that none of them wanted to kill her? But they were weren't they firing back at her? She would be dead. I expected her to be dead, you know, so that didn't make any sense to me. Now, I'm going to just say that the main problem of this movie is the final 20 minutes. Not the entire third act, but specifically the final 20 minutes is when things kind of went crazy. Once that kid, Elijah, once he shows up with that money, you know, to Bossman, to Atemi's place, the rest of it just devolves into plot contrivance, okay? And all of that happens happen simply so that the movie could end on that climax of, the action sequence that they really wanted to have. We see things like that happen all the time, and I don't like it. I made the same comment in Bank Alert, how just whatever. First of all, when that boy walks in, all that time that they spend moaning and bemoaning and talking about how, Boro has gone there, Jaguar's already killed him, why didn't somebody take off immediately and go after him and solve that problem? There's usually this phenomenon where sometimes the writers forget what other characters in the story world know versus what we as the audience know. For instance, we as the audience know that what Jaguar really wanted from Boro was for him to come back and head his crime oil bunkering squad. It wasn't really the money, right? So the money was a trap. We know this, but the characters in the story world don't know. Wow. Actually, I'm filming with my windows open. That's crazy. I have too much faith in my mic. So the characters in the movie don't know that. So what actions then should the characters have taken? Run off and give him the money, because as far as they know, what Jaguar wants from Boro is money. Instead, what do? And that tracks to the very next point, which is there's no reason for them to prepare for war. I know they really wanted to say that line, let's fly the black flag. It wasn't necessary, of course, when they get there, they will find out that Jaguar was not interested in the money all along, and then war would have happened organically. But for them to prepare, giddy up for war, that was, they had no reason to think. And again, I had that same criticism again with Bank Alert. Same thing, where these people prepared for war when they had no reason to anticipate war. And what I'm going to say is that that's also is something that would have been a very easy fix. When the kid is running, he had many accidents along the way. He fell, the box fell, he hit somebody and all of that. What I thought was going to happen at that time was that something would happen to that money, whether it gets snatched, it gets lost, or it gets lost or whatever. If something had happened to that money, it would have answered all of this, because when his mom shows up there and is like, where's the money so we can take it to Jaguar? And then he's like, they stole the money from me, or something happened to the money. That's when the mom is like, hey, you've killed me today. And then you can understand then at that point why Atemi would say, fly the black flag. Because yes, this is going to be war. Because now Boro has walked into the lion's den and there's no money to take to him, But okay, it's fine. What's done is done. That final 20 minutes again. Another thing that I really took issue with is that there was just a bit too much misdirection there with the suspense on whether or not the boy survives. And ultimately left me feeling manipulated, and I never like when a movie makes me feel manipulated. Brings me to the end of things that did not work. I told you it wasn't a lot. The rest of these things are going to be some things I didn't understand, and I think they would have benefited from added context. How long had this abuse been going on? The movie presents this abuse as sort of like a lapse in judgment, like something that is just happening in a short frame of time because of the difficulties that this character is experiencing, right? So which is why we can allow ourselves believe in his change at the end. However, I don't know how long this abuse has been going on though. There's a huge difference, especially also in character turnaround between if he has been abusive for the entirety of their marriage, of the whole lifetime of this boy. There's a difference between that and if it's only a recent thing. But it's hard for me to believe that this boy sets out, oh, let's kill Boro over something that he does, because if he has happy memories, and this also plays into the psychology of children, a child who has had a happy, supportive, healthy father this entire time is not going to start planning the demise of his father, or he's not going to suddenly start saying let's kill. So I don't know what it was, and I wish the movie had been clearer about that. Another thing I wondered about is how long since Boro abandoned this, Jaguar's ambitions for him, because that ties very much to the first point when he becomes abusive. Anyway, all I'm going to say is that these timelines are important. In conclusion, the end left me conflicted. Let me explain. While I understand wanting a happy ending, can I put it to you that there's also a value in a more realistic narrative that when you go through hell like this, you may escape but hardly ever completely intact. So that's to say that I would have been okay with that kid dying. And I know that those are difficult words to say, but I would have been fine with Elijah dying in that scene. Generally speaking, especially for character-driven movies like this, a bittersweet ending, when well executed, can be incredibly powerful. So take this film for instance. Sure, I'm happy that it's all kumbaya. This movie would have stayed with me, would stay with me longer if it had ended with Elijah dying. Okay, how do we come away from this movie? Yes, now they have the money, they get to leave this violent place, they have a new baby on the way, but they have to grapple with the fact that all of this, if it had played out the way I wish it had played out, they now have the added burden of grappling with the fact that all of this has come at the cost of the life of their son. And so the movie ends, but it extends beyond, the story extends beyond the screen, because now that this family is going to be okay. They are on the path to recovery, but there's a whole journey of healing and reconciliation ahead of them. And so if it ended that way, maybe this man was ever tempted to lift a hand against this woman again, he will say, like Rwandan people say, Ntabo bizongera, that is never again. I hope I said that right, never again. So that said, this climax is still an incredible crescendo that had my heart in my mouth. That final scene is so alive. It took me a while to recover after the credits rolled. I've probably said this already, but I don't think I've seen the complexity of domestic violence, why one chooses to stay or leave or whatever, handled this well in a Nollywood movie. And then as far as also the family story, the love is there, the brutality is there, the movie does not flinch from either. And so whatever this movie got wrong, whatever sins it committed, I leave here saying I forgive you, okay? I absolve it of all its sins. Go be creative, multiply and replenish the industry. And don't kill anybody. Don't kill anybody, okay? I highly recommend this movie, guys. You'll enjoy it if you're not in a hurry, because like I said, it does drag a bit, especially in the beginning. Another group of people who will enjoy this movie if you enjoy a really well-made film. This is a really well-made film, okay, guys? That's it for Kill Boro. Thank you so much for staying here with me to the end, because I assume you're still here or you wouldn't be hearing me saying that. Thanks for tuning in also. The next review I already said is Criminal, so it's showing in the cinemas right now. Go see this movie so that we can talk about it, okay? I'm going to put a link below to the 5-minute and under version of this review, so if you have those friends and family members that don't want to sit through and in-depth analysis like this, you can just share that with them. You, my darlings, you have the right to an incredible viewing experience, so never settle. Thank you.